Oh, that's awesome.
That's
I
very
like
awesome.
that. That's cool. What a good model to use, DCM. I've enjoyed that. I've come up and done some shows at DCM with different troupes over the years.
Right. I think what appeals to it is like, you know, we're outside of the city. We're very close, but you know, we don't get to see a ton of shows. You know, like if we were in the city, we could hop to any number of those theaters and see any number of shows in any given week. There's like very little barrier to entry. So for us to be able to bring in and pack as much into a finite period of time is super appealing, and so that's sort of why the SteelStacks Improv Comedy Festival stole that DCM model of like, no, just put it up as many teams and don't stop, so our community could be exposed to as many different performances and types of performers and styles as possible in that weekend.
I don't think you have to say stole. I think there's lots of places that do marathon type things, so you don't have to feel bad.
That's okay.
about
Well, that's all right. We stole it. It's fine. You know, but like it does, like that sentiment of like do as much as you can in that little window. Like,
yeah.
You know, the benefit of us being outside of the city is we've gotten exponentially more stage time by being in a community where we are basically doing all the work ourselves.
Yeah. And that's really all that counts. You can get on stage, you know? I mean, that's where you work it all out.
Yeah,
you know, 'cause
absolutely.
I think, I'll speak for all four of us. I think at some point we all considered, like, should we be in a city to do this? You know, and then you start doing the math and you know, take your life out of it, right? Just do the math on the performing side of it, you know. If you're in a community where there's, you know, 100 people doing this, there's a lot more opportunity than when you're in a city where there's like 5,000 people that are actively competing for like 30 spots, you know. It's tough. So like that's one of the beautiful things of being, you know, outside of a major metro area for us is that, you know, we get to do a lot weirder stuff. We get tons of stage time. It's cool.
If you love it, you should just be doing it. You know, you shouldn't have to be like fighting over like 5-minute slots in places. And you know, I think having all that time is more important to be doing it than it is to like, you know, kind of really competitively try to do it. You know,
right?
Yeah, we had a few people in our community, in the Austin community, move to New York or LA in hopes of, you know, moving to the next level of comedy or whatever, and then after a few years return back because they were like, well, you know, as great as it was in these big cities, I didn't get to do a show once a week or twice a week or any kind of show that I ever want to do. I had to be part of this existing structure, and I'm competing with like famous people. Like my friends who go to LA are always like, yeah, I'd love to do a show, but the problem is unless I pitch something that's like going to sell out every night, they've got famous people who want the stage time, so they're just going to go ahead and give it to them. It's like, yeah, I mean, as soon as at this point, the boom of improv sent people, every person that you see in a comedy television show these days are all improvisers. Like, I just listened to an interview with the guys from Silicon Valley because their season just started. And, like, all of them are improvisers. Like, are you kidding me right now? That's ridiculous. But because they live in LA and because they're also, you know, they do their television show, but then sometimes they, you know, apparently doing a television show doesn't take up all your time. That's what I hear. And in the off time, some of these guys have like a show at UCB. So it's like, there's a dude on television. Of course you're going to give the show slot to him, you know? Oh, man. Yeah. I like it so much better.
Middleton Schwartz, great stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And that I'm sure it's great. But it's like, can those guys just go ahead and continue to make their money on their television shows and leave the stage time to the rest of us? I don't know.
Great point. Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, if we could just get rid of all the headliners, that would be amazing.
Right.
Well, I mean, they have work to do and we have work to do.
Yeah,
it's just
totally.
different kind of things. Like live theater is one thing where, you know, you want to perform in a very specific kind of world. I like that. And I enjoy it. But, like, I don't know. I'm not saying, like, once you move on, you can't come back.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like...
It's like, hey, fail at the first thing. Or fail at your first thing. Then come back. Don't be successful and come back.
Or, you
I
know,
love-
there's just...
I love failing.
Yeah.
Failing is the best.
Failing,
oh,
yeah.
God.
Failing's how you learn.
You learn so much. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, especially in improv, you never really know how badly something's going to go until you do it the first time. Or somebody does it and you're like, wow. I teach improv. You guys teach improv, right?
Yep.
As far as like lessons you've witnessed or things that you teach to people, is there anything that you have learned from your own, like a failure of your own, that you then brought into class and you're like, wait, listen, guys, this weekend this happened and now I need to tell you, don't do this.
What a great question.
Yeah.
I start all of our classes by like asking people if they saw a show since the last time we met, so we have a chance to talk about it, because you know it's an invisible art form that isn't really all that old, and so we're all figuring it out still, right? So to be able to talk about it even as a student, even if you're terrible and you can't articulate it, I think you get something from the exercise of talking about it. And more often than not, like if one of my students has seen me perform, inevitably they're going to bring up something from that show that I'm either embarrassed of, or I'm like, yeah, don't do that. That's straight up hack. I'm terrible. You know, like I do love when they do call me on my shit, though. That's glorious. When they'll be like, hey, you taught us not to do that. And they'll be like, yeah, because it didn't work, and you got to see me prove that.
That was on
that
purpose.
was the lesson. Yeah, I did that because I knew you were there.
Yeah, I wanted you to see how shitty that was when somebody does it. That's really great.
And it all boils down, I think, you know, for me in teaching, and to maybe answer that more specifically, like, usually it doesn't work because it means you weren't listening.
Yeah, that's pretty much everything, I think.
Yeah, like
Improv in general?
at some level, usually the answer is that didn't work because you were being a shithead and you didn't listen to the person you were on stage with.
Yeah,
The
you're
ball
either
was dropped somewhere, yeah.
Yeah, you're just either trying to think of your funny thing to add, or you know, just getting lost in your head. And then that's that. Yeah, no, that is generally, at least in my experience, that always seems to be the reason I ruin things. so yeah, I totally get what you mean there.
I think a lot of times people, the number one thing that I see is people underestimating their scene partners.
Totally.
Like
Sure, yeah.
they think, oh, I need to fix this, or this person's not funny enough, so I need to be funnier. And every time you do that, you just look like an asshole.
Totally.
Like there's no way that you end up looking good when you're like, oh, let me fix this for you. You always just look like a dick. I'm like, just don't do it. Let it be super dumb. I don't care if you're on the side and you're like, this scene is the worst. Either edit it or let it be.
Right. One of my favorite, actually, like with the failure thing, and then what I teach is like, I like watching. I mean, I like trying to tell my students to be like as specific as possible, because like you can see it. It happens on stage a lot where somebody is being a little bit too broad, and then somebody else puts something in there, and you watch their sales get like deflated just because like it didn't exactly go where the way that they wanted it to be good to go. And that's like one of those examples, you know, where it's like, you know, don't be a dick, just roll with it, and then just be more specific next time, you know.
Yeah, and if you have an idea, be specific and say it. I mean,
say it outright. A lot of people play coy, like they're gonna like, you know, they're dancing around it.
Coy.
Because they're trying to be polite.
They're trying to be polite, yeah.
They're trying to be polite. They're trying to be nice human beings, and it's just like, no,
Right.
Nope,
Yeah.
stop. Just be an asshole and say what you mean.
I think when you watch our show and in comparison to the scene that's like that we have currently, it's just, I think they get to see that we're not as polite around each other as like most beginning improvisers are that are kind of like in the scene, or like maybe new to improvising. So that's kind of the thrill of seeing our show, is that none of us are polite to each other anymore. Like we're kind of just like we take it any way we can for the most part.
Well, I think there's two
Yeah, I
ways
see that
to
a
look
lot.
at that, really. And part of it is like the longer you perform with a group, the closer you are, and so you're more like friends, and friends just
For
razzing each other and messing around, and that's what makes for the best improv is when you're when
Right.
you're just friends having a good time, and then it's like so it doesn't feel high stakes. It makes you feel like, oh no matter what, we're gonna have the best time ever because these are my best friends.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
There's so many people that actually like. There's a lot of people that get into improv just to get better at communicating with other people.
Yeah.
Like
Oh my God!
Like, there's so many
it changed my
introverts.
life in that way for sure.
yeah, like so many people come into it just because they've always had a hard time making friends or like just generally
Yeah.
being social. And I always love watching those people when they stick to it, just blossom like a second puberty or something, and they just sort of
Oh yeah.
like they just become a real hardcore part of the community, and just to get to see them sort of open up in that way is always great. But yeah, they always kind of start off
Yeah,
not
you
wanting to
made the
push too many
concept
buttons.
of second puberty
Sound better than it would be.
That reminds me of this show called You Don't Know the Half of It. That's at so Wendell and I are part of this theater called The New Movement, and that's the name of our theater in Austin. And The New Movement has two locations, one in Austin and one in New Orleans. So there's a whole community of people doing fun stuff in New Orleans, and occasionally, like twice a year generally, we all mix and mingle in the two cities and get to see their fun projects and stuff. And
Those
one
are
of
two
their
great cities to mingle in. Yeah.
yeah, they're pretty fun. And one of the New Orleans theater gals has this show called You Don't Know the Half of It, where local playwrights will write like a scene, and they'll a two-person scene,
Yeah.
and then they take it apart and they give the lines to an actor, and then they give an improviser to be their scene partner, and the actor memorizes all of their characters' lines, and the improviser just reacts whatever way they think they should, and the actor has to maintainedly say the correct lines.
Yeah.
But the other person, the improviser, just sort of creates a world out of whatever it is they say back to them. So they could totally take it down a weird road, and then the actor who's saying the written lines could bring it back to something else, whatever. But it's this really interesting show to watch the person who you know doesn't know what's going on sort of just live in this world.
Yeah, we did basically the same thing up here a couple times. We called it scripted improv. Same general thing. We stopped doing it because it was so much work to produce the show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but being an improviser in that scenario was so fun and crazy challenging, and that like it goes back to what we were talking about. Like the only way that works is like it forces the improviser to like hyper listen because the other person's not listening. They're not. They're doing their blocking and their lines verbatim. So it was a great experience for me as an improviser. I felt like doing that show twice actually was one of like the bigger growth moments for me as a performer, because it was like, oh shit, I'm doing this by myself.
Huh. Do you guys have a big community of like theater, like straight theater and sketch comedy, people who are doing like written performances, that kind of thing?
A lot of traditional and community theater.
Right on.
There's sketch is starting to take off a little bit.
It's bubbling up. You're starting to feel it.
Yeah.
Starting to feel it coming up under the
Yeah, like a
skin.
second puberty.
Yeah, it's what's
Yeah,
happening.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been through so many puberties related to improv. It's insane.
About a baker's dozen of puberties.
Yeah, at least a baker's dozen worth of puberties.
And he's still delightfully awkward.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I love that. That should be, you should do a sketch workshap and call it a baker's dozen of puberties.
Running out of
That's a
places
good
to
idea.
have new hair. Yeah.
Did you guys know a baker's dozen of puberty is actually an episode title on Law and Order SVU?
Brought it back, and we're back.
Woo! So wait, you're telling me? Oh man.
So wait, you telling me this person went through puberty 13 different times? Is that what you're telling me? Yeah, Ice-T, that's what we're telling you. Thanks. Oh my God, that's so great. Thank you for bringing it back. I really appreciate that. Oh, you know what? I don't know how this reminds me of it, but it popped into my brain, so we're going to go with it. We were talking about sketch, and we were talking about characters earlier. We were talking about the idea of like not being nice and not being polite. Whenever I teach